A very warm welcome to all of you for this session. Today we will be discussing about the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 and provisions related to human trafficking. So when I talk about human trafficking, we all know that a lot of people in India are trafficked, maybe because they want cheap labor, maybe because you need a domestic help, maybe you need some organ and you illegally trade the organs of a human being. You need it for organized crime. It can be for begar, it can be for beggary, it can be for drugs, it can be as child soldiers. So across the globe we have this issue of human trafficking. It is not only in India. We cannot say that human trafficking only happens in a developing country or human trafficking is only happening in a developed country. We have statistics to prove that human trafficking happens everywhere. So we will be discussing about the important provisions related to human trafficking in the new law, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023. And before starting the discussion, I would like to tell you all that in the case of human trafficking, lots of human rights are violated. We are violating the legal rights of the person. We are violating the human rights of the person. We are also violating the constitutional rights of the person. So in human trafficking, a basket of human rights, legal rights and constitutional rights are violated. So we need to address the issue of human trafficking in a very holistic way with the intervention of all the stakeholders. And we have also come across lot of standing operating procedure at all levels. So we should follow it. And first is that we need to be educated about human trafficking. What is human trafficking? How can I protect myself and my family members from being trafficked? Because in the age of technology, I will be discussing that we used to think that, trafficking happens from a source. Then the person is transported. So that is the transit. And then there is a destination point. Sometimes, in human trafficking, the source, the transit and the destination is the four walls of a person's room. So, a child or an adult is sitting in his or her room and is being trafficked. So you don't have to move outside your own house. You don't have to cross your own house. You don't have to cross your washroom or your living space to be trafficked. So in the age of technology where, we have a lot of social media platforms wherein, you post things, you make reels, and everybody and everyone in this world can see your post, can talk to you in the gaming websites and on the social websites. So, in the globalized world, we have a feeling of connection. So, just for a like, just for a share, you can disclose your identity to anybody in this world. So, you are prone to be trafficked. And what is human trafficking? We will discuss later on. But let us first start with the highlights of human trafficking law, which is there in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. BNS 2023, whenever I call BNS, that means that I am relating to Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So BNS 2023 has a victim-centric approach to women and child trafficking. When I say that it has a victim-centric approach, it means that there are provisions related to having a victim-centric approach. It can be in the form of compensation. When I talk about compensation, it is not a small amount which, you are just giving it to the victim so that, the victim is able to get rehabilitation or reintegration in the society. The compensation will be based on case-to-case based needs. So somebody who needs medical help will have more compensation. Somebody who wants psychological help will need more compensation. So it is not that you are providing 500 or 1000 rupees as compensation On case-to-case basis, the courts will decide the compensation amount. So it has to be for their reintegration. It has to be for their bringing them back into the society. So rehabilitation, reintegration, and then to rescue them in a proper way. It is not that one time you have rescued those people and then they do not have the means of sustenance. So again they are back in the vicious circle of poverty. So you have to have some programs wherein they break the vicious circle of poverty. So the judge will decide and fix the amount of compensation. The proceedings are in camera proceedings. Audio and video recordings are relevant. So, as a part of evidence, we have Bharatiya Sakshi Adhiniyam, which talks about, evidences in the form of audios and videos being admissible. So, we have in-camera proceedings, we have, audios and videos recording, we have the use of scientific technologies to address the issues of human trafficking. Because many a times when you use mobile, then mobile is an evidence. And it is a valid evidence in the court of law to prove a case of human trafficking. The newly introduced offense of organized crime in BNS includes trafficking of a person, human trafficking for prostitution or ransom, and provides stringent punishment. So we will be talking about organized crime after a few minutes. And the act of buying a child for prostitution has been dealt with enhanced punishment with mandatory minimum punishment of 7 years, and this can be extendable to 14 years. So this is also very important, that when you buy a child for prostitution, then the offense is punishable and the minimum punishment is 7 years and the maximum punishment is 14 years. So you cannot buy or sell a person because we are human beings and we have some rights which are inherent. And with my, when I am in the womb, then I have a right to birth. Even after my death, I have my burial rights. So you cannot take away my human rights just because I do not know about my human rights, or maybe out of my social and cultural compulsions, I am not able to, stand before you and tell you that you have violated my rights. The offense of importation of person from foreign country is made gender neutral now. So, it is not only girls are being transported. So now the term is gender neutral. It covers the importation of both boys under 18 years and girls under 21 years for the purpose of forced or seduced sexual exploitation. So this is also a very important provision. Now we are using gender neutral terms because sometimes back, you used to think that, okay, trafficking is only happening with girls and with ladies. No, trafficking also happens to males for labor, for sexual activities, for the people who wants escorts. So trafficking is happening of males also, and it is a gender neutral term, so it includes women as well as male. Then beggary has been added in the expression exploitation for the purpose of human trafficking, and Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita prescribes enhanced punishment for a person indulging in habitual human trafficking. So now we have come to know that there is a definition of organized crime. We have come to know that if you use child for prostitution or for sexual activity, the punishment has been enhanced. The now Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita is a victim-centric law wherein, we have taken technology in bringing justice to the people who have been, tortured, abused, humiliated, and their rights are violated every second. So, human beings are not for sale, we all know this. But in actual, we know that lot of human beings, are being sold and purchased in all parts of the world. So to have a check on that, we have stringent laws in the country as well as global level. We will be discussing about the definition and you will come to know about the protocol. So we know that you cannot sell a human being, you cannot purchase a human being, and begar is prohibited in India. Beggary is a crime in India. Still we find, at every red light, you will find small children, in the, with a woman, the small children are there, and then, or infants are there, and they are drugged, and then they are abused, and just to protect them from being, maybe you just want out of your out of your humanity, you want to give them something so that the child on the street is not away from the system of education. Or maybe if he is not having clothes or she is not having clothes, you want to help the child, or you use you give 10 rupees or 5 rupee note so that the child is able to eat something. But on this platform, I would request you all, please do not give alms to the beggars, because in a way you are promoting this trafficking industry, because the traffickers are very smart people. They make use of your humanity, and then they exploit the people who are on the streets. So do not give alms to the beggars. And beggary is prohibited in India, one should know, and it is also prohibited under the law. Then Article 21 of the Constitution of India talks about dignity rights. No person shall be deprived of his life and liberty except by the procedure established by law. So when I talk about Article 21, which is a fundamental right under the Constitution of India, I know that you cannot violate my human rights, you cannot violate my constitutional rights. But every second, we find that men, women, and young population and children are abused in India and in abroad. So is this because they are vulnerable, or is this because that they are not aware about their rights? Is this because they don't have voices, and even if they raise their voice, they are not heard because of belonging to a section which is vulnerable? They belong to the vicious circle of poverty. They do not have means of sustenance, so they cannot afford to go to the court of law for justice, because if they go to the court of law for justice, they will not be able to fetch bread and butter for their family. So are we saying that the equality before law and equal protection to law is not available to them, which is a fundamental right under the Constitution of India? Are we talking about that dignity rights are not maintained for them? Yes, dignity rights are there for everybody. But if you are not aware about your rights, and if you do not go to the court of law, then there is a system wherein we educated people should pitch in between and provide an ecosystem for them so that they are able to realize their rights in the society. So in the family, one should be aware about human trafficking. In the community, one should be aware about human trafficking. In the society, one should be aware about human trafficking. And at the state level, at the panchayat level, at the local level, we have to educate the people about human trafficking. So what is human trafficking? We will just come to know. Globally, as I just said, that people are trafficked from one place to another, which is origin. So if I am trafficked from Lucknow, that is my origin. From Lucknow, I move to different places, that is my transit. And then if I reach Delhi, that is my destination. But as I just told you that in the age of technology, you do not need to, move out of your room, out of your house to be trafficked. So you can be trafficked in your house, in your own room. So the origin happens from your home. The destination is also your home, and transit never happens because you're not moving outside your home. You are sitting in your home and you are being trafficked. Trafficking can be, for the purpose of making a nude video, or maybe for other forms of sexual exploitation, because we find that children are watching mobiles and are talking to strangers on the gaming websites, on the social platforms. They are posting reels, and those reels are open to all. So anybody who wants to see the location of the child can have an access, because they are trained. The traffickers are trained people. So they can access your location, they can understand, and they can play with your emotions. They can maybe give you some lurement, and then you can be trafficked. So we will be discussing about the definition of human trafficking, because it is very important that before we know what is human trafficking, we will not be able to protect ourselves from being trafficked and our family members from being trafficked. So the protocol to prevent, suppress and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children, Article 3, paragraph A defines trafficking in persons. So it says that if you are recruiting a person, you are transporting a person, you are transferring a person, you are harboring or receiving a person by means of threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, abduction, fraud or deception, of the use of power or a position of vulnerability, or the giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation, then this is trafficking. So now we will break this definition and try to understand, because Article 3 talks about the definition of human trafficking. So under this protocol, if you recruit a person, you transport a person, so what are your acts? So in the next slide, if I refer to the act, it can be a recruitment, it can be a transportation, it can be a transfer, it can be harboring or receiving a person. And what are the means of trafficking? You can use threat or force, you can use coercion, you can use fraud, abduction, abuse of power, or abuse of that person's vulnerability, or you can lure that person. And what is the purpose of trafficking? So purpose of trafficking is always illegal. It can be for exploitation, it can be for torture or violation of his human rights. It can be for prostitution and sexual exploitation. It can be forced and hazardous labor, slavery, illegal activity and employment, beggary and organ trade, or begar. So when I divide this definition into three parts, first is what acts constitutes trafficking. Second is what are the means of, those acts. And the third is what is the purpose. So now we come to know that you are recruiting me, but the means are fraud, deception, or maybe you are using my vulnerability, so I am not able to take decisions which are in my interest. So the best interest principle is not followed here, and I am not able to make valid choices. So when my consent is not a valid consent, because you are forcing me, you are luring me, you have maybe kidnapped me, or you have used coercion, or you are an employer and I am your employee, and you are just forcing on me something which I don't want to do, but I do not want to lose job, so I am doing that. And maybe out of my vulnerability, you are making use of your position and trying to get something out of me which is illegal. It can be that you want my womb. It can be that you want that I should work as a slave in your factory, or you want that I should work in violation of the labor codes in India. So there are labor codes which talks about the rights of people who have to be employed. So if you are violating that, if you are trying to sell drugs, or if you are involving me in any crime or any organized crime, then that is an offense of human trafficking. So I need cheap labor. I need people who can work in my factory, but I cannot violate the rights of the people which are there in the labor codes. So I have to follow the Supreme Court judgments. I have to follow the labor codes. So I know that there are provisions for minimum wages, but if I violate that provision, it is not that I am only an employer. And if I am employing people for illegal purposes, then I am a trafficker and I will be liable and punished for my offense. So, you just cannot take consent, because the consent has to be free consent as per the Indian Contract Act, and any consent given for illegal activity is not a consent. So I cannot consent to be abused, to be tortured, to be exploited by you. So I have my human rights, I have my dignity rights, and I cannot do away with my rights. So even if I am giving you the right to exploit me, because of my vulnerability, you will not get this defense in the court of law that, they consented, or, my parents had consented. You have lured my parents, or, you have tortured me, you have abused me, and so I am forced to give consent for a illegal offense, and that consent is not valid. Then the Goa Children Act 2003 also defines child trafficking. This is a very good legislation which talks about child trafficking in India in 2003. In 2003, we did not have any other, state law which talked about child trafficking. So under section 2Z of the Goa Children Act 2003, the definition of child trafficking is given. Child trafficking means the procurement, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of children legally or illegally within or across borders by means of threat, use of force, or other forms of coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, of the abuse of power, or of a position of vulnerability, or of giving or receiving payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for monetary gain or otherwise. So, now you have understood the definition given in the protocol. So, it is very similar definition which is given under the Goa Children Act 2003. So, we know that what acts constitute child trafficking: procurement, recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring or receipt of children legally or illegally, and the means are threat, use of force, coercion, abduction, fraud, or deception, and the purpose can be for monetary gain, for illegal purpose, for misuse of that person's vulnerability, or for selling, that child. So if this happens, this is a case of child trafficking and is punishable under the law. So we have to understand that, you cannot recruit, or you cannot transfer, you cannot procure or harbor a child for illegal activities. And we have the Right to Education Act and also Article 21A, which talks about right to education for children. So we are talking about free and compulsory education for children, and in the same time we cannot have child trafficking in India. So children should be nurtured, should be protected, and should bloom into good human beings. And for this, it is very important that we address the issues of malnutrition, we address the issues of child exploitation, we address the issues of, dropout from the schools, we address the issues of providing inclusive and quality education at the doorstep, which is the mandate of our university, IGNOU. And we have to ensure that the child is safe within the four walls of the family. So, if the child is using the laptop or a mobile phone, then you have to have check devices wherein you can restrict some sites which the child cannot use. Many a times, if you have parental control over the apps, then you will be able to monitor the activities of your child. And then you can see that whether the child is talking to strangers or, is sharing confidential data or data related to privacy with unknown strangers in the name of friendship or in the name of getting more likes. So there is a big competition wherein, we have a cyber world where we want to become very popular, and we are cutting ourselves from, physical exercises, from physical games. Even, the games like Carom and Ludo are now online. So we have to see that where can we have a balance between games and, public spaces to be used by children. So when you use threat or you use force or any other form of coercion, or you abduct a person, or you practice fraud or deception, or you abuse your power, you induce a person, or you give some payment to somebody who takes care of me, and then you take the consent of the person having control over the person recruited, transported, harbored, transferred, or received, commits the offense of trafficking. Exploitation shall include any act of physical exploitation or any form of sexual exploitation, slavery, or practices similar to slavery, servitude, or forced removal of organs. The consent of the victim is immaterial in determination of the offense of trafficking. So this is very important, that you cannot say a trafficker cannot get the benefit of consent, because for illegal activities, nobody can give you consent. To harm oneself, nobody can give consent. So you cannot take the benefit of consent. And physical exploitation, sexual exploitation, mental exploitation, and slavery and practices similar to slavery is all included in the definition of exploitation. So exploitation is a broader term, and the court decides on the basis of the facts of the case whether the person or the child has been exploited or not. Then we talk about the definition of organized crime. It is very important that when I refer to Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, we should always see section 111. Whenever we are talking about section 111, clause 1 talks about any continuing unlawful activity including kidnapping, robbery, vehicle theft, extortion, land grabbing, contract killings, economic offences, cyber crimes, trafficking of persons, drugs, weapons or illicit goods or services, human trafficking for the prostitution of ransom by any person or a group of persons acting in concert, singly or jointly, either as a member of an organized crime, syndicate, or on behalf of such syndicate, by use of violence, threat of violence, intimidation, coercion, or by any other unlawful means to obtain direct or indirect material benefit, including a financial benefit, shall constitute the offense of organized crime. So now in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, we have included human trafficking, we have included, prostitution, we have included, that if any person, acts in a concert or, singly or jointly, and is a member of an organized crime. So, when I am acting in or, performing in a concert and I am, doing it out of my own will, it is legal. But if you are forcing me to, perform for maybe 20 hours in a day or 18 hours in a day in unhumanitarian situations, exploiting my vulnerability, taking consent from my family members by threatening them, by abusing them, or giving them some monetary benefit, then this is all a part of organized crime. So, that person who is a part of organized crime will be guilty of organized crime and cannot claim the benefit of an employer or maybe a group agent. So you cannot say that, I am a group or an event manager and I do not know that this is happening. You have to take the responsibility of the entire group which is performing, and you have to ensure that the labor codes are followed and the fundamental rights are there for that person, the legal rights are there for that person, and you cannot, break the law and do something which is against the dignity of that person, which is, harming the worth of that person. So you cannot take consent and you cannot take the benefit later on that, I did not knew. Maybe, he wanted to perform and I have given him the papers that the person has signed on his behalf as his guardian or his parents. So that person is performing. No, you cannot exploit a person. You cannot, hire a person for illegal activity. So, if I have to do some, maybe in drugs, I hire people, or maybe for theft, I hire people, for prostitution, I hire people, that is illegal and I will be penalized. Then the very important definition is under section 143 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. 370, if you refer to the Indian Penal Code, then do refer to 370 section under the Indian Penal Code 1860. So from July onwards, we have these three new laws. So we will be talking about the section 143 under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. It defines trafficking of persons and it says, whoever for the purpose of exploitation recruits, transports, harbors, transfers or receive a person or persons. So, as I told you, the act. What is the act? Somebody is recruiting a person, somebody is transporting a person, somebody is harboring a person, somebody is transferring a person, somebody is receiving a person or persons. And what are the means? Using threat, using force or other forms of coercion, by abduction, by practicing fraud or deception, by abuse of power, by inducement, including the giving or receiving of payments or benefits in order to achieve the consent of any person having control over the person recruited, transported, harbored, transferred or received, commits the offense of trafficking. So again, we will be discussing about this definition because this is very important. Under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, I say that whoever recruits a person, whoever transports a person, whoever, harbors a person or receives a person for the purpose of exploitation. So the first line says whoever for the purpose of exploitation, just mark these lines. Because if you are exploiting a person and your purpose is illegal, then if you recruit a person, you harbor a person, you transfer a person or you receive a person or persons and you use threat, you use force or any other form of coercion, you abduct that person, you practice fraud or deception or of abuse of power by inducement. So I will give you few examples, in the daily advertisement, you see a very good advertisement wherein you get opportunity to earn maybe 10K in a month or in a week, and then you go there and you are not knowing that that person is involved in trafficking and is involved in organized crime. So you are fascinated by the job profile which is available on the dailies or on the internet, and you go there, or you see a WhatsApp message that you want to earn this much, please contact at this number. So I want to become a fashion designer, or I want to become an actress. So if I go for my photo shoots and all, and there my dignity rights are compromised, then you cannot say that I have given consent. No, because I was unaware about the situation. Many times, the people are drugged when they go for auditions and all. Many times it happens, that they blackmail the people. Sometimes you use camera in the washroom or in the rooms, and then they get data from you. Sometimes they have hacked your laptop and you are changing your clothes, maybe you are taking bath. So another caution, please do not use mobile phones and laptops while taking bath or while changing clothes in your own house. There are a lot of children, lot of adults whom I know, they just put on a song and then they take bath. So please do not do this, because sometimes your privacy rights are compromised on different sites. So somebody has hacked your system and is able to, see your screen, then it will be very difficult to protect yourself from being trafficked. So whenever I talk about technology, we have to be cautious and we should be aware about the best usage of technology. So if I see an advertisement, I should double check it. I should not go to an unknown place without knowing and without informing and taking my family member to that place. So even if I'm in a hostel, I should inform my parents. I should not talk to strangers. I should not do friendships on the gaming websites. I should not disclose my personal identity and my personal information on the Facebook, Instagrams, and other LinkedIn. So somewhere you have to maintain the checks and balances. Then it is said that the expression exploitation will include any act of physical exploitation, sexual exploitation, slavery, or practices similar to slavery, servitude, beggary, or forced removal of organs. And I have already discussed that the consent of the victim is immaterial. Then whoever commits the offence of trafficking shall be punished with rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 7 years, but which may extend to 10 years, and shall also be liable to fine. When trafficking of one or more than one person is happening, then the punishment is rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 10 years, but which may extend to imprisonment for the life, and shall also be liable to fine. Where the offence involves trafficking of a child, it shall be punishable with rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 10 years, but which may extend to imprisonment for life, and shall also be liable to fine. And where the offence involves the trafficking of more than one child, it shall be punishable with rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 14 years, but which may extend to imprisonment for life, and shall also be liable to fine. So we are talking about that if you are trafficking one person, what is the punishment? If you are trafficking more than one person, what is the punishment? If you are trafficking a child, what is the punishment? If you are trafficking more than one child, then what is the punishment? And if a person is convicted of the offense of trafficking of a child one or more than one occasion, then such person shall be punishable with imprisonment for life, which shall mean imprisonment for the remainder of that person's natural life, and shall also be liable to fine. A very important provision. So, if you are convicted of the offense of trafficking of a child more than once, then the punishment is life imprisonment. Then when a public servant or a police officer is involved in trafficking of any person, then such public servant or police officer shall be punished with imprisonment for a life, which shall mean imprisonment for the remainder of that person's natural life, and shall also be liable to fine. So, the public servant or the police officers are duty bound to protect your rights. So, if they are found that they are involved in the offense of human trafficking, then they are dealt strictly, and the punishment is life imprisonment, and they shall also be liable to fine. When I talk about exploitation of a trafficked person, we have to refer to section 144. Whoever, knowingly or having reason to believe that a child has been trafficked, engages such child for sexual exploitation in any manner shall be punished with rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 5 years, but which may extend to 10 years, and shall also be liable to fine. So, if I come to know that the child has been trafficked, and if I, engage that child in sexual exploitation, then I should be liable for, rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 5 years, and which can extend to 10 years, and I shall also be liable for fine. So this is very important, that you are a factory owner. So you cannot say that for my BD Udyog, or for my carpet industry, or for my jewelry making industry, or for my jute industry, I have hired children. You cannot hire children, you cannot recruit children. So if you come to know that these children are exploited or are sexually exploited, then you cannot say that, okay, children were working in my factory and were sexually exploited, but I was unaware of this fact. No, you have to ensure the best interest of the child. You cannot recruit a child, first of all. Secondly, if you come to know that the child has been trafficked and you are using that child for sexual exploitation, then you are punishable with rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 5 years, but it can extend to 10 years, and then you should also be liable for fine. So you cannot take the benefit of innocence if you are dealing with children. So the best interest of child will always be taken care by all the courts. So you have to be very careful, because a child has to be educated and has a right to be educated under Article 21A. We have a Right to Education Act. So you cannot take away the, rights of the child and use that child for sexually exploitation and then take the benefit of ignorance. No. Whoever knowingly or having reason to believe that a person has been trafficked engages such person for sexual exploitation in any manner shall be punished with rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 3 years, but which may extend to 7 years, and shall also be liable to fine. So, if you are using people and you know that they have been trafficked and you are using them for sexual exploitation, then you cannot claim the benefit of ignorance, and you cannot say that they had consented to be trafficked and abused. They have consented to be, tortured, and they have consented for violation of their human rights, legal rights, and constitutional rights. So, for 3 years, minimum punishment is there, and the maximum punishment is 7 years, and can be also liable to fine. Then, if you are habitually dealing in slaves, then it is also punishable under section 145 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. whoever habitually imports, exports, removes, buys, sells, traffics or deals in slaves shall be punished with imprisonment for life or with imprisonment of either description for a term not exceeding 10 years and shall also be liable to fine. So, when I talk about selling and purchasing, you will feel that, are human beings commodities? No. But if you sell and you are in a habitual, habit of selling people, purchasing people, or, trafficking people, and you deal in slaves, then you will be punished under the law under section 145 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So you cannot deal habitually with slaves. Slavery is prohibited in India, and you cannot have a slave in the 5th age of human rights. So we are living in the 5th generation of human rights, and you cannot say that this person is my slave and he has consented or, has taken money from me or, has taken some benefit from me. So he has accepted to be my slave. No, you cannot keep a slave. Then you cannot make a person work for unlawful compulsory labor. So section 146 talks about unlawful compulsory labor, and it says that whoever unlawfully compels any person to labor against the will of that person shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 1 year or with fine or with both. A very important section, You can hire people, you can recruit people, you can harbor people, you can, transport and transfer people, but you cannot exploit them. So you cannot compel them to work for 18 to 20 hours because this is against the labor codes. You have to provide them with working environment as per the labor codes. You have to ensure that at hazardous places, you have to follow the standing operating procedures, the protocols, and you cannot say that you just lack the infrastructure, you don't have money, so you have a hazardous unit, but you do not, or you somehow you play with the law and you do not follow the laws and do not ensure the safety of the people who are working there. You cannot say that the person has consented to work beyond the reasonable period given under the labor codes. So extra money is okay, but if you hire a person and you tell him that okay, you have to work for 4 hours, 7 hours extra to your working hours every day, and you do not give that person any break or food breaks, then for natural cause you do not give that person break, then this is inhumane, and nobody can consent also for having this kind of environment. Sometimes for organized criminal, for drug dealing and all, or for jewelry making industry or for tobacco industries, they keep people in hazardous occupations. The people are staying there, breathing the same air, and many times lot of children die because some part of jewelry is going inside their ears, their nose, and they feel suffocated and they die. So you cannot say that within a reasonable time, okay, if you are working, it is okay, but after the reasonable time, you cannot force a person to work in your factory, in your unit, in your house. Even for domestic work, you cannot you cannot tell a person that your duty hours start from morning till night without any break because you are staying in my house. So you have to ensure the dignity rights of that person, the legal rights of that person. Then the offenses against women are dealt strictly, and this is enumerated under section 74 to 79. So this offences against women are dealt strictly, and section 74 to 79 talks about this. It applies to women affected due to criminal force and assault with intent to outrage her modesty or with intent to disrobe her, or sexually harass or subjected to voyeurism or stalking, or whose modesty is insulted by uttering any words, making any sounds or gestures, or by any indecent act. So, you cannot stalk up a lady, you cannot do an act of voyeurism, you cannot outrage the modesty of the woman, and if you do so, you will be punished under the sections. Then aggrieved women facing any kind of violence due to attempted sexual harassment, sexual assault, domestic violence, trafficking, honor-related crimes, acid attacks, who have reached out or been referred to OSCs are provided with specialized services. So for these offences, the women are provided with specialized services under the OSCs. Then, women affected under the following sections, section 63 to 70, can apply for OSC assistance, and somebody who has been raped or gang raped, or a rape or gang rape of a minor girl, that girl can also take the assistance of OSCs. Then section 81 to 87 talks about marriage offences, wherein a man causes cohabitation by deceitful inducing belief of marriage. So if you promise to marry and then you break your promise, or marries again during lifetime of his wife, or marries dishonestly or fraudulently without lawful marriage, or entices or takes away or detains a married woman from criminal intent, or a husband or a relative, subjects a woman to cruelty, kidnaps, abducts, or induces a woman to compel her to marry. So if you forcibly marry a girl, or you just make false promises and then you rape a girl, or just in the guise of marriage, you are already married and then you just go in a temple and you say that we will perform the marriage ceremony, and which is illegal, so you will be tried under these sections. Then section 88 to 91 are related to offences causing miscarriage. So, voluntary or without the consent of the woman, or by acting in such a manner so as to prevent the child from being born alive, or to cause death of a child after birth. So, the female feticide cases are dealt with strict punishments under the law. So, if you cause miscarriage, because you cannot go for an ultrasound and know the gender of the child. So if somehow you are able to manipulate the procedures and then you go for miscarriage, or go for abortion, or you kill a child after birth, then you will be penalized under section 88 to 91 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Then section 111, 135, 137, 138, 141 to 146 are related to wrongfully confinement, where you wrongfully confine a woman, you kidnap or you abduct, or you traffic or import from a foreign country, or you want to make that person a slave or for compulsory labor, then you will be penalized under this section. And section 124 is related to acid attacks. So this is all punishable under these laws. And the introduction of EFIR and zero FIR under Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023. So this Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita replaces the Criminal Procedure Code now, are aimed to aid swift reporting of such heinous offences against women that require immediate attention. So you can file EFIR, you don't have to go anywhere. You can file a zero FIR, so it is immaterial that whether you are approaching the right police station or not. So the age of sexual consent for a married woman under section 63 of BNS has been raised in conformity with the POSCO Act from 15 to 18 years. So any girl who is above the age of 18 years can only consent for marriage. Then all the sections of POSCO will be invoked if rape is committed on a minor girl. So the POSCO Act will be applicable in case rape is, done with a minor girl. Then for women's safety also, we have certain procedural safeguards under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Section 43 says that while making an arrest of a woman, the police officer cannot touch her arrest unless the police officer is a female. A very important provision, No arrest before sunrise and after sunset. So you cannot go and arrest a lady after sunset and before sunrise. Then section 49(2) says that the states that whenever it is necessary to cause a female to be searched, the same shall be done by another female with strict regard to decency. This is also very important. Everybody should know these, that a lady police officer can only search you. So a male cannot search you. Then section 183 clause 6A talks about statements to be recorded by a woman magistrate and in her absence by a male magistrate in the presence of a woman. So a woman magistrate will generally record offences against women, and if a male magistrate is recording, then it should be in the presence of a woman, so that the lady is cautious, and a lady is well placed, because she will be more comfortable in telling the atrocities and discussing what happened to her to a female magistrate. Then section 193 talks about report of police officer on completion of investigation, and says that investigation under those sections of BNS which are related to women shall be completed within 2 months from the date of which the information was recorded by the officer in charge of police station. So you have to complete your investigation within 2 months. Then section 219 talks about conditions when the complaint can be lodged by some person other than the victim, who may be a child or of unsound mind. So a guardian of a disabled or a child or unsound mind can also file a complaint. Then we can also talk about section 308, which talks about evidence of a woman below the age of 18 years as a victim of rape or any sexual offense is to be recorded. Then the woman should be confronted by the accused, and her right to cross-examine the accused is to be ensured. So it is a very important section. Then 366 also talks about trial of rape, and section 397 is also talking about the immediate treatment of victims free of cost. So the victims of acid attack, the victims of rape, the victims of any offences related to women need medical aid free of cost. The treatment will be carried out, the psychological help will be given. So the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 has made significant changes in the law for protection of people from being trafficked. And if we refer to all these provisions, then I can assure that we can protect ourselves from being trafficked and our family members from being trafficked. Thank you all for the session. Have a great day.
आप जो है स्टूडेंट